early tonight. How's that sound?
Can I ask you a question? It's your birthday this month, isn't it?
It's way early for birthdays.
You're going to be 56?
Yeah, I'm going to be 56. Yeah.
Can I wish you a happy birthday because you won't be here?
You won't?
Well,
That's right.
That's
We
right.
won't
This
convene
is
for
our last
another
time
month.
together.
So what is
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. Me. Happy birthday to you. You can now go to Denny's.
Okay. I could have done that. I can do that now.
Yeah.
55. All right. Let's get the road on the show. Welcome, everyone. Joyce, come on up. We got a warm seat for you here.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, so we're going to get started early tonight. So tonight we have cancer prevention. Next month we have anti-aging. Anybody interested in turning the clock back as you get older? You actually look and feel younger? Want a double portion of that?
Yep.
Be here next month or be left behind. Okay, so tonight we're talking about cancer prevention. It's probably safe to say that everybody in here has had a friend or a family member, or you lost a loved one, or it's been near to you, right? All of us. That's a picture of my kids, my dad, and my mom. And my mom's no longer with us. She passed 2 years ago from cancer. She was diagnosed in, I think it was July of 2017. And, this was taken 10 years ago, a little bit more. And I remember that day, and I remember when they came over, we were lighting Hanukkah candles. It was a joyous day for them to do that with their grandkids. But do you think my mom or my dad or any of us had any idea that she wouldn't be here in 10 years? No. And the same is true for all of us. Like, you don't know where you're going to be 10 years from now. None of us are promised tomorrow. And we're not God. We don't know what our next day has in store for us. And I can tell you all types of things about what she did, which probably helped with her cancer, and a lot of different things which I know that hurt her and made it get worse. But you know what? I'm not God. All I can tell you is there are things that cancer likes, and there are things that makes your body inhospitable for cancer to actually survive. And you do the best that you can. And that's what this is about tonight. It's about lowering your risk, because your body makes cancer, whether you like it or not. We all know that, your body makes cancer. But if you keep your body strong and you keep the opportunity slim for the cancer, your odds are better. Make sense? So, a lot of people are nervous because cancer runs in your family. I know it runs in my family. Does it run in your family? Yeah. But if you look at what the statistics show, 5 to 10% of all cancers are from genetic mutations. Like Lou Gehrig's, once you're diagnosed with it, it's just a matter of time. You're done. There's nothing you can do about that. That's 5 to 10% of all cancers. A very, very small part of the DNA pie. And you have familial cancers, which is about 15 to 20%, but most of that comes from environmental factors. And then you look at these other cancers, sporadic cancers, 70 to 80% of those also from what? Environmental. So what are the environmental factors? It's your lifestyle. It's what you're doing to turn those genes on, or are you turning them off, those cancer genes? Whether you consume alcohol, toxicity, tobacco, stress, obesity, all of these things, you're either increasing your likelihood that cancer's having a party, having Thanksgiving in your body, or you're starving it out, one way or the other. But that slide is to show you that the majority of your risk of cancer is up to who?
Me.
It's up to me. It's up to you. Each of us are responsible for our own health, right? So I'm going to show you, what not to do and what to do instead. First, you really should evaluate what kind of person you are. Everybody's different. I'm not going to tell you what to do. There's some people that, they'll be getting adjusted the rest of their life because they know, an adjustment actually helps keep your body strong, keeps you out of doctor's offices, off of medication, out of hospitals. To other people, it's like, do I have to do that for the rest of my life? It's like foreign to them. But if I ask you guys, you have to brush your teeth for the rest of your life, what would you say?
Yep.
Yeah, only the ones you want to keep. So, everybody's got a different mindset when it comes to wellness. And I'm not the judge or jury, but I will tell you this. If you've got a pill-popping lifestyle, if you're one of those people who pop a pill for every ill, then you're going to increase your risk of that, because anytime you take a pharmaceutical or a chemical and you put it in your body, you're changing your body's chemistry. And your body has an amazing intelligence to maintain balance so that it can keep everything functioning and healing. And you want to limit the interference to that as much as possible. See that right there? Cholesterol drugs have been shown to increase the risk of breast cancer by what? 83 to 143%. I don't want to go around the room and ask who's taking cholesterol medications, but look, you should be taking inventory, because when we take these things, it may not make a big difference if you take it for a day, a week, a month, but when you go on these prescriptions, normally you're taking it for how long? The rest of your life, yeah. Women taking an aspirin a day for 5 years increase the risk of breast cancer by 80%. I'm pulling these from medical journals, guys. Zantac, antibiotics. I had surgery on for my nasal septum on Friday. You'll hear a little nasal. So, they went in there and they did all kinds of stuff, and it's very uncomfortable. A lot of bleeding, and it was a minor surgery. They put me out with propanol. I was thankful for it, and but they prescribed me antibiotics, and I thought about it. And I'm like, why did they prescribe me antibiotics? To prevent a what? Infection. Okay. Well, why do I get an infection? If I'm unhealthy, I'll get an infection. If my body tissue is weak, I'll get an infection. If I smoke or have a lot of sugar, or I'm sleep deprived, or I have a lot of stress, then my body's probably a ripe, host for bacteria, right? But I thought about that. I'm like, is that me? No, I don't think that's me. And maybe if I do get an infection and it was serious, maybe I would take an antibiotic, but I'm not going to do it preventatively. And I went online, and guess what? I found research published in medical journals supporting the same thing. Preventatively, for this type of surgery, they showed no difference. Furthermore, I said to myself, how important is my microbiome, my gut, when it comes to my immune system? Do I want to mess with that? For the very thing that they're trying to prevent, you take antibiotics, you're going to actually cause an infection, among other things. Who else knows? So the whole purpose of coming to these workshops is to think through these things. It's asking better questions. Because if you ask better questions, you're going to get better what? Answers. And you get better answers, you're going to have better health. You're going to be safer in the long run. You don't want to make bad decisions just because somebody tells you to do something. So there's a time and a place for these things, but long term, not good for cancer. Okay, so how many of you guys, you see the Think Pink all over? We've seen it. We see it in October, breast cancer awareness. April is National Cancer Awareness Month also. And you have to understand the marketing that goes behind this, which creates a big problem. It's called overdiagnosis. What does that mean? Well, the more screening you do, the more problems you're going to find. And just because you find problems, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're life-threatening problems. So this is the problem that they're running into. It's called overdiagnosis. All started with Susan B. Komen, who is the front runner for a drug company. The drugs that actually, AstraZeneca, who manufacture Arimidex and tamoxifen. How many of you guys have heard of tamoxifen? These are breast cancer drugs. They're the one that created the front runner, this Susan B. Komen Foundation, to make it look, obviously like a good thing. So I'm all for humanitarian efforts to save lives and raise money, but the problem is everybody is making hand over fist with this. Billions of dollars, and we're not one step closer to a cure for cancer, are we? No. And they've been found multiple times misappropriating funds and whatnot, but the whole problem is not just the money, and not just the fact that billions of dollars and we're not closer to cancer. It raises big questions about this, these screenings and the fear that it causes, and more testing and more biopsies and more exposure to radiation, increasing your risk of cancer even more. So the largest study that has been done to date on mammography came from the British Medical Journal recently, and they showed there was no difference between those women who got mammograms and those who didn't. No difference in the death rates. It was exactly the same. Interesting, isn't it? Completely different from what we've been told and what we would have thought. But think of what it leads to. They have false positives. It increases the stress of the person who's getting that report. And what does stress do to your risk of cancer? Now, think about the amount of radiation that's exposed when your breast is put on that plate, not to mention chest films, hundreds of times of radiation that's exposed from those particular films that they take. The Journal of the American Medical Association published this not too long ago. They say that their technologies have gotten so good that they can find some of these early cancers, and it looks like cancer. It's benign. If they would have left it alone, it would never grow and spread and harm the patient. Journal of the American Medical Association says that. They're saying that, well, maybe if we would have left it alone, the person would have been better off. Why would they say leave it alone? Why would they say leave it alone? Because inherently they know that the body's not stupid. They know it's what? Smart, yeah. Body has an inborn intelligence. And you have to know this. Like you know, when they publish this in a medical journal acknowledging that, then you have to ask yourself, what are they hiding? You know, and they can't hide it anymore. And I could have pulled out in my laptop at least a half a dozen different clips where they're interviewing medical doctors that are frustrated, expressing their frustration on the overdiagnosis, and they can't tell which of the cancers, if they would have left alone, the patient would have been fine instead of going in and doing biopsies and increasing the risk of spreading and metastasis. It's a real frustration for practicing physicians today. So you get the point. But who has cancer? Everybody has cancer. Colonoscopy screenings. You know, somebody asked me this week, you know, do you get a colonoscopy screening? I don't want to go for my colonoscopy. I don't want to do it. Well, my cousin is a medical doctor, and he told me a long time ago he will never get a colonoscopy. Why? Because he's seen too many of his patients have their colons perforated from it. Not to mention, polyps are a normal finding in everybody. Your body makes polyps. It's part of the healing process. It's part of the cleansing process. Colonoscopy screenings, they find precancerous lesions, again, which is normal in almost half of the population by the time somebody's 80. Autopsies find prostate cancer in 30% of men over the age of 50, 50% by the age of 70, and 80% over the age of 90. If a man lives long enough, he will die with his prostate cancer and not from it. About prostate screenings, PSA screenings, you guys know that this is not appropriate anymore. They've, you know, proctologists, they've already put this out. The papers are out, the literature's out. PSA screenings are not conclusive for prostate cancer. You can have inflammation of your prostate, benign prostatic enlargement. You can have an infection. You can have an irritation from riding a bike, and it can jack your PSA up. Meanwhile, you know, if they do that and they tell you your PSA is high, first thing, fear of God gets struck into you. What happens? Going for more tests, right? Biopsies, more trouble. So this is the thing that we have to know, that it's not indicated anymore. If there's no symptoms, you don't have any problems, there's no bleeding, there's no reason for you to go get a PSA test. So conceptually, if you look at the picture on the left, what do you see? A fish tank, right? You see a clean fish tank or a dirty one?
Dirty one.
If you were a fish, would you want to swim in that?
No.
No. What's wrong with the fish? Why are they sick? They look like they're dead, right? They're swimming in death. The environment is bad. It's not a good environment, right? Now, how do you fix the cause of that problem?
Change the water.
Change the water? That's a terrible idea. Why? We can't just change the water. We have to give the fish drugs. You know, the fish are sick. We have to give them drugs. We have to give them chemotherapy. We have to put some kind of poison in that fish so we can squeeze out the chemicals that got in there from the environment. Right? Oh no. Well, that sounds like the medical approach. It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
But it doesn't make sense if you stop and think about it. You can't poison the body back to health. But again, you know, when we get a cancer diagnosis, we don't dare ask that question. It's hard for us to think straight. So yeah, Bruce, change the water, change the environment, correct the cause, right? That's the holistic approach. Now, hopefully this is if you're in stage 4 and you've had cancer ravaging your body for 10 years, you may be too late to the party to do that holistic approach. I hate to tell people that. I don't know, every case is different, but the best time to start a holistic approach to cancer prevention is when? Is now, yeah. As early as possible, or 10 years ago. So what I'm teaching you tonight has been around a long time, long before I was ever thought or existed on the planet. 1931, Dr. Otto Warburg, he was commissioned by Hitler to come and do research because he was just an incredibly intelligent leader in the scientific field. He won a Nobel Peace Prize for cancer discovery in 1931 with alkalinity in the body and the respiration of cancer, what cancer uses to actually thrive and survive. And what he found is that no disease, including cancer, can exist in a what? Alkaline environment. How many of you guys heard the word alkaline before? Yeah. One of the first places we learned about alkaline were the pHs with a pool, right? How many of you guys would like to swim in the pool on the left? What's wrong with that? The pH is acidic. It's out of balance. And the pool on the right has a balanced pH. Balanced pH should be slightly alkaline. But when the pH goes out of balance, what happens is there creates an environment that enables the algae, the fungus, or whatever it is, an opportunity to thrive. And that's why you see the water get green. Now, again, what can we do? We can go in there and we can scrub the walls and kill the algae, but unless you put the right chemicals in and you balance that pH, you haven't corrected the problem. Similar situation actually exists in your bloodstream. Your body's supposed to be slightly alkaline. It's supposed to be ideally 7.365, just a little above 7. And when you do have an alkaline bloodstream, then your body can actually transport oxygen. The cells can actually move oxygen through your body the way it's supposed to. And oxygen is important for all processes, right? You can't live without oxygen, can you? And oxygen is where your energy comes from. Oxygen is what every cell needs, right? But the only way to have that proper oxygenated environment is to have a healthy alkaline environment in your bloodstream and in your body. So if you look at the spectrum below, you'll see what is conducive to that is low sugar fruits, low sugar vegetables, alkaline water, lemons, limes, tomatoes, avocados, basically foods by God, right? You put foods that God created into the body He created, and you have a pretty good working recipe there. But if you look on the other side, you see food by man. What do you see? Yeah, you see processed meats, you see alcohol, caffeine, sugar, you see sugar substitutes, and all that creates acidity. And what does it do to the pH? Makes it more acidic. And what does it do to the bloodstream? Well, it destroys the integrity of the cell walls. It disrupts the polarity of the charges, so they all start clumping together and sticking together. They're negatively charged, can't transport the oxygen, so now it becomes fermented from all of the sugar. And guess what? Cancer doesn't need oxygen. It prefers fermentation to actually breathe and to actually promote itself. So that's the perfect environment, just like the algae for the pool, that's the perfect environment for cancer to grow in. Cancer has only one primary purpose, using what? Sugar instead of oxygen for respiration. So anytime you take oxygen out of the equation, what are you doing to the cancer? You're feeding it. But anytime you take sugar out of the equation, you are starving it. Makes sense, right? So again, this is one concept among many that, God forbid, you ever are faced with a situation where you get a diagnosis or you have a conversation with a doctor or whatever. You got to remember this, because I have patients that I help with this, and they adhere to this. When my mom was diagnosed, she went over to Spain. She was under the care of an oncologist. world-class oncologist. He did not do chemo, didn't do radiation, but this is one of the things that they implemented. And it helped her. And her numbers came down. She came back cancer-free after she went through this and applied it. It's a known fact. This just came out just a few years ago. University of Chicago Comprehensive Cancer Center. That up there is blood cell microscopy of breast cancer tissue. You see that green arrow? You see going to the green on there? Hypoxia is identified by the green. What is hypoxia? Low oxygen environment, which encourages tumors to spread. And this was a paper that was published not too long ago. First saw it come on the scene in 1931. They're still exploring it now. It's a known fact. In the absence of oxygen, cancer will thrive. In the absence of oxygen. So 2 places you're going to see that tonight. One is with nutrition, obviously. And what's the other one? Where else do you get oxygen?
Exercise.
Very good. Exercise. Everybody heard that? Okay, so we can't get away from it. How does sugar feed cancer? Well, there's insulin receptors. There's insulin receptors. You know, all your cells have insulin receptors. But cancer cells have 10 to 50 times more insulin receptors than normal cells. What does insulin do? It hijacks what? Sugar. Not only for diabetes, but for cancer. They are both diseases of metabolism. PET scans measure how much glucose is being consumed by the active cancer cells. See that on the left? That's a PET scan. What does a PET scan do? When somebody has cancer, if they want to do a before and after and see if they're getting better or worse, they're looking for those black spots. Black spots show where the cancer is sucking up the sugar. You got it? So what is insulin? It's like fertilizer for what? Cancer growth. So if you want to feed cancer, sugar is a definite cause right there. And if you want to starve cancer, you know what you got to go after. The average American consumes how many teaspoons of sugar a day? 50. Yeah. Probably more, honestly. You wouldn't think, because a lot of it's baked into these things that it goes, you know, if you don't read the labels, you don't know that high fructose corn syrup's in, you know, tomato ketchup or your spaghetti sauce or any of these juices. We don't look. We don't know. It goes under the radar. Right? But then, what else raises insulin? Not just the simple sugars. I mean, don't you get an insulin response when you have grits or oatmeal? And especially the kind that you tear out of the packet, right? You're going to have an insulin response from that. For breakfast, for lunch. I'm not saying that these foods are necessarily bad for everyone, but for a cancer patient, is that a good idea? No. Heck no. Now, as a matter of fact, if you want to prevent cancer, then you should not probably be having these things every day. You know, moderation should probably be good judgment for us. And what about bad fats? Bad fats, we know this. Bad fats, have you seen all the hype about the bad seed oils now? Or Robert Kennedy coming in and he's trying to get all that cleaned up and cleaned out. Why? They're highly inflammatory. These bad fats, these rancid oils, they camp out at the surface of the cells. They drive inflammation and they increase your risk of cancer. So what do we have to do? See that thing in the upper left corner? What do you see there?
Read the label.
Read the labels, yeah. Hydrogenated oils, any of these seed oils. You gotta look and see what's in there, because these are the silent killers. So, as opposed to the bad fats, we need to have what? More good fats. What are some good fats? Avocados, yeah, all the
Virgin olive oil.
coconut oil, raw nuts and seeds, walnuts, almonds, real butter, grass-fed, like the Kerrygold, salmon, sardines, fatty fish, and then the Ultraplex EPA, the fish oil capsules. For most of us in this room, we're not having enough fish. You know, when we look at your omega-3 levels, we see that you're not quite where you're supposed to be. For a lot of you, I told you that you should be taking more. Even if you have fish once a week, for a lot of us, we're not getting enough. So we need to pay careful attention to this. If you haven't been tested yet, you probably will at some point in our office. What is a ketogenic diet? How many of you guys have heard of a keto diet? What do you see in that picture that's good for fighting cancer? Or what do you not see? We don't see the sugar, right? No sugar. So what you see is protein and good fats. That's it. And so when there's no carbs, your body does have the ability to shift to something called ketones for energy. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, but unfortunately for cancer, cancer can't do that. Cancer cannot use ketones for energy. So this is one of the reasons why a keto diet is effective for a cancer patient. And it works. I've seen it work. I don't recommend it for people who aren't, fighting cancer. But you can do it for a little while. And yeah, it does look pretty good, doesn't it? You can do it for a little while. I wouldn't recommend doing it like forever, but your body will go into fat burning. Your body will clean out. And there's nothing wrong with that right there. So does all that make sense for the reasons why we've reviewed so far? Okay. What about fasting? Is fasting a good idea? Yes. Yeah. Long ago, 1909, they did caloric restriction studies. And they found that it literally inhibited the growth of tumors in mice. Studies going back 100 years or more have shown that fasting reduces most of the growth pathways that happens with cancer and increases something called autophagy. Say autophagy. Autophagy. Does anybody know what autophagy means? Autophagy. Do you know what that means? It means all the old dead damaged cells get cleaned out and made room for the new healthy ones. And when you fast, your body does that. And that goes for bad cells that could be turning cancerous. So when you fast, your body's actually doing that. Now some of you in this room, you did this weight loss program with us, or the fat loss program with us, and you went on a clock like that where you actually didn't eat till noon, and you had your last meal at like 8 o'clock. And that's what we call a 16-hour fast. And yes? Yeah.
Just going back a little bit, the ketogen, I know someone who tries to stay on it all the time. What's the disadvantage of doing that?
It can be hard on the liver and the kidneys. And it's for some people, they can have a problem with ketosis, which can be toxic to the body. So that's where it gets complex.
I just wondered if she
Yeah.
does it for weight loss.
Yeah,
purposes.
it works for, it does. But long term, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's like a permanent fix.
I feel everything's a balance, personally.
I agree, yeah. But this intermittent fasting that I was just mentioning, that was a healthy thing to do for everybody. I mean, even if you just did it once a week, even if you just didn't eat past 6 o'clock every night, and then you got up and you had breakfast at 8 o'clock the next day, that's still an intermittent fast. If you eat late at night and then you get up and you eat early breakfast, you may not be giving your body enough time to get all the junk out. Fasting protects against many of the cancer risk factors: obesity, type 2 diabetes, and a lot of these issues which are metabolic at their core. Talking about obesity, there's unbelievable amount of studies with this in its connection to cancer. 1,000 studies or more since 2016. Breast and colorectal cancer related to obesity and excess body fat. So what you should be thinking about is how much, right? Fat, the word fat and obese is really kind of general until you start putting a metric on it. In 2003, there's a million participant study. It showed that those with a BMI greater than 30 suffered 52 to 62% more cancer death, and the risk of liver and pancreatic cancer increased by 452% and 261% once you go over a 30 BMI. How many of you guys know what BMI is? Body mass index. Yeah, it's the height-weight ratio that the World Health Organization put together because they know the correlation with this. So everybody here should know what their BMI is. If you don't, and you're serious about cancer prevention, then you're missing a big part of this. So the way that you find out is you stand on, we have the scale here if you want to do it. Stand on the scale, take your shoes and socks off, and it puts an algorithm through this, a low-level electrical impulse through your body. And then it starts factoring out your muscle mass, your fat mass, water weight, and it's able to get the BMI from all that. But right there, if you're over 30, that's high risk for cancer deaths. So that's something that's important to know if you are not in the know. Your body fat percentage also gives you a visceral fat rating. So if you haven't done that yet and you want to do that, let us know. Deborah can set up an appointment for you. But that's good knowledge to have, to know where you're at and if something is urgent more than not. Also, let me ask you this: do toxins cause cancer?
Yes.
Toxins cause cancer. We know that, and we see it all over the news. But the thing is that every one of our cells are like buckets, and those buckets can only fill up with so much in terms of toxins cumulatively before we have symptoms, and then all of a sudden one day the bucket starts spilling over, and then we get all kinds of symptoms. We get high blood pressure, depression, fatigue, hormone disruptions, irritation, least of all cancer. But you don't know when that's happening. But these are all the culprits: prescription drugs, cleaning solutions like soap, your deodorant, aluminum deodorant, sodium lauryl sulfates in the soap and the toothpaste. I'd be willing to venture that many of us in the room have gotten flu shots, not to mention childhood immunizations, which has thimerosal, which is 50% ethyl mercury, which was never meant to be in anybody's body, not to mention propylene glycol, which is antifreeze and all types of other preservatives that they put in these vaccines, which we've all been exposed to, all of us. That stuff goes in, and we're kidding ourselves if we think it comes out. You have amalgam fillings, which is 50% metallic mercury. There's lead in our water systems, lead in our cosmetics, lead in paint. And then we have this glyphosate, which everybody's exposed to now, more and more and more, through corn and soy. It's the active ingredient in Roundup. And this is what they genetically modify the corn and the soy. And it's what's made of with corn and soy today? Everything, right? But even if you're not, buying corn and soy, you're eating it. If you're eating chickens, if you're eating, beef, if you're eating fish, this is what they feed everything with. It's ubiquitous. There's no way that you cannot get it. And that's going in. And they put glyphosate, small amounts of glyphosate, into laboratory animals, into their water source. And within a period of weeks, they all developed memory tumors. So tell me this doesn't cause cancer, right? The reason why I'm going over this is you need to have this on your radar. The question is not, are you toxic? The question is, how toxic are you? And if you've never been tested for the toxicity, that's one of the things that we do here, because, again, what it does is the toxins, just like the bad fats and the sugar, they camp out at the surface of the cell, and they wreak havoc, and they disrupt the communication at the surface of the cell, not allowing proper cellular communication with not just the insulin receptors, but your hormone receptors. Think about all the nutrients that have to get in, and all the toxins that have to get out, and it becomes a toxic cesspool inside your cell, which affects the DNA. And studies have already shown this a long time ago, that if your cells are toxic, you're turning on bad genes. Whatever genetic predispositions that you have, whether it's for cancer or Alzheimer's or heart disease, if you're toxic, you're turning those genes on. You're flipping the epigenetic switch, right? So that's why this is important. So the two tests that we do in the office, one is a visual test because toxins affect the optic nerve, and the other one is a urine test to show cellular inflammation. And if you've never had that done, if that's something that you want to look into, that's another resource where you can make application with what we're talking about. But just ask them before you leave tonight, and they can help you with that. So we talked about the second place where oxygen is going to be found tonight. We said it, Denise, it was exercise, right? And I have somebody that I'm taking care of right now who actually is in stage 4 with pancreatic and stomach cancer. And what is part of his routine? Every day he's in that right down there, hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Why? Because what did you just see on the slide before? Hypoxia is what allows cancer to spread, right? So you want to saturate the body with oxygen. And you guys are not in stage 4, God forbid there's nobody here, right? But again, there is cancer in your body. There is. And so what's one of the most fundamental proactive things that each of us should be doing every single day? What? Exercise. Just go for a brisk walk. I mean, even if you just did a brisk walk for 20 minutes. I had minor surgery on Friday. I was out the next day. They said, no working out. I was like, brisk walk? Can I just do a brisk walk? Yes, you can do a brisk walk. I've been brisk walking every day. I'm not lifting weights now, but I'm brisk walking. I want energy in my body. I want oxygen in my body. I don't mess around with that, Your body has to move. We were created to move. So I don't want anybody in here to take that for granted. Nobody gets a hall pass for that. Nobody's exempt. It doesn't matter how busy we are. We should, each and every one of us, be able to find at least 15 to 20 minutes in our day to, do a brisk walk or do something, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So somebody say no? No, right, let's mess with it. Cancer killing resources, everybody always asks, what kind of supplements, what's proven, what's tried and true. The Ultraplex Complete Clean, many of you know what this is. It's basically it's a supplement with basically everything in it. It's got 26 grams of protein. I'll have this after my workout in the mornings, but it's got a full spectrum of multivitamins in it, with the exception of vitamin D. No vitamin D in there. Why? Because it just doesn't last. They can't make it stable with the formula. But it's got everything else. It's got antioxidants, which are important for cancer prevention. Quercetin, you guys know how important that is as an antioxidant, and acetylcysteine, which is the precursor for glutathione, which is the master antioxidant for detoxification in your body. Green tea, antioxidant. So for our talk tonight, highly appropriate. And again, at the master class, the workshops, only time that we discount this. But if you haven't tried it, I would definitely recommend it. We call it the breakfast of champions. You can mix it with water. You can have it with almond milk, coconut milk. It's delicious. It really is. I can't keep it in my house. My kids eat me out of that house and home. Every time I bring home a tub, it's gone. They're making shakes all the time, smoothies, but it's good stuff. Curcumin, Ultraplex curcumin, comes from the Indian spice turmeric. This is highly concentrated. You can't just tap the turmeric on your food and expect to get a concentrated dosage to have the effect that evidence-based literature backs it as a cancer support. Among all other nutrients, a little bit on your food is not going to do the same thing as highly concentrated dosages. Fair enough? Just so you guys know, so this is written up in many different publications. We know this now. It destroys cancer stem cells, and it also reduces inflammation. Vitamin D. How many of you guys have had your vitamin D tested with me? And I read the number with you, right? It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Like everybody knows we're supposed to be taking vitamin D, and then all of a sudden you see your level, and it's like down in the dumps. It's like dog low. And like, well, my doctor didn't tell me. No, because the conventional medical place for that is like 30, 32. So if you're there, they're not going to say anything. Maybe not remarkable, right? But what I want to show you is this. If you can prevent cancer, what should be the right dosage?
70.
Yeah, one of the best ways to prevent most cancers is to maintain a 70. Yeah, so if you're not, like if you're taking 5,000 international units a day, or 3, and you're at 40, what does that tell you? You're not getting enough. Maybe it's the quality of the product. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have K2, which you need to absorb the vitamin D. That's important. But you'll never know until you get tested. And then, if you're low and you're trying to get it up there, you have to get retested. So we always do that. Breast, prostate, colon, lung, pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancers can reduce that by at least 50%. Did you know that? Pretty important, isn't it? So everybody should be taking that vitamin D. The only question is, what the dosage is. Everybody's a little bit different. CoQ10 is important. You know that for your heart. You know that when you're on cholesterol meds, doctor's supposed to recommend that. But it just so happens that every cell needs CoQ10 for normal cell function. It's good for your cardiovascular system, and it's good for your nervous system. And probiotics. I talked to you about the probiotics earlier, right? I took this out of a study. I want to share this with you. from the National Cancer Institute just a few years ago. They said researchers have already begun to test whether tweaking the composition of the gut microbiome can boost the effectiveness of some cancer treatments, particularly immunotherapy. So in a study recently, they said making wholesale changes to the makeup of the gut microbiome improved how well an immunotherapy drug worked in some people. How about that? Well, if it could help your immune system with a cancer drug, don't you think it would help your immune system even more if those toxins were not in your system? Yeah, heck yeah. So, you know, I look at that and I'm like, okay, well, at least they're acknowledging the importance of the microbiome and your immune system. 70% of your immune system is where? It's in your gut. Yeah, it's your second brain. So you can't overlook this. If you're not taking probiotics, why? Like, why would you not? This is one of the most important things that you can do, not just for your immune system, but feeling of well-being. Your serotonin is 90% of your serotonin is made there. I could go on and on, but this is hugely important. All the emerging research coming out now is showing how important that gut health is. And now oncologists are catching on to it to see what they can do so that after they blast somebody, that it doesn't come back, the cancer. That's why they're looking at this. They want to know what else they can do. So probiotics is part of the supplement suite, and that's what's in your handout. And again, as we said, the discount is for tonight only, the 15% off, if you want to apply the resources that we're talking about with it. And then I also want to let you know the answer to the question that I asked some of you guys here. Who did I ask this to? I think I asked you, didn't I? Or I asked you. Or I asked you. David, I know you got the right answer. I said, here was my question. I said, what is the number one factor that will increase your risk of cancer more than anything else? And so the answers that I got were stress. I'm like, that's a factor, but not the number one. Sugar, that's a factor, not the number one. And it goes down one. I don't know. That's okay. If you don't know, that's fine. Come to the workshop. You're going to find out. The number one factor. Here's why. Because we're going to go through and see, like, it doesn't matter how good you eat, how much you exercise, how many supplements you take. If the system that manages and controls all the function and healing of everything in your immune system is short-circuiting, you don't have a chance. So, is there anybody here who does not have stress? Let's not kid ourselves. We all have stress, right? Some give more than that, some take more. But how does stress cause cancer? Well, when you're under a lot of stress, your adrenal glands make something called cortisol. And when cortisol goes up, your insulin goes up. And when insulin goes up, you start gaining weight, your hormones go out of balance, and then your brain says, hey man, what's going on here? I've got to make some changes. So it communicates through something called your vagus nerve. And your vagus nerve is connected to your gut, and it's connected to your lungs, and it's connected to your heart. And the vagus nerve is basically the conductor of the symphony of all of the healing in your body. It kind of maintains balance. So when you're ramped up all the time because of stress, your nervous system gets out of whack. It gets shot, and then everything else goes out of whack. So you guys know what the nervous system is. Everybody here is familiar with that. You see the blue lines that go from the spine out to the organs? That's the parasympathetic. Everyone say parasympathetic. And the yellow lines are the sympathetic. Sympathetic, yes. What's the difference? The blue, the parasympathetic, there you go. Yep. For the blue, the parasympathetic is the rest and digest. That's what slows down your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion. And the yellow is the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So when you're stressed out all the time, that's usually the part that goes into overdrive. And when that whole system gets out of balance and the vagus nerve is involved, there's a problem. But what studies show is that chiropractic can have a profound effect on that. Why? Because health comes from your nervous system. If you look up the word health in the dictionary, what does it say? What does it say? It says 100% function. What controls function in the human body? Your nervous system. What part of that controls your immune system? Well, your thymus, your liver, your white blood cells. Like, all of those organs that control the immune response come from what? Your nervous system. So if that's not working right, how could your immune system do the job that it needs to do to fight off colds, flus, and cancer? Can't. So the vagus nerve starts right here, and it goes right in front of something called the atlas. Raise your hand if you heard the atlas before. I know you have. And you see how it goes all the way down, and it connects to control everything in the body. And when you have that adjustment, what happens is, you ever notice how relaxed you get after the adjustment? Because it stimulates the parasympathetic and it brings those two systems back into balance. And when your autonomic nervous system is more in balance, the body's more in a ready state to handle stress better. Does that make sense? People under regular chiropractic care have better autonomic nervous system balance. It enables your body to be in a more ready state to handle the stress. And as a result of that, your risk for cancer, colds, flus, heart attacks goes what? How about that for prevention? Now, if you could take a supplement, if you could take like a one a day, and it could do that, how long would you take that for?
Forever.
Yeah, that's a good question. So an atlas subluxation is what? It's when the top bone goes out of alignment, right? What's it called? Atlas. Everybody should know that. When do I check your atlas? Every time you come in. When am I checking your atlas? When I look at the temperature on one side versus the other. Why do I check the temperature? Because when there's a subluxation, one side goes cold. Because skin temperature is controlled by your what? Your nervous system. So that's how I know when to adjust you, when not to adjust you, and where to adjust you. Is this important?
Yeah.
Of course. So they found this out, the effect of atlas adjusting, in a study in 1990. I was in chiropractic school my first year when this came out. I remember reading this. They did a study on HIV patients, the immune system. They took a control group of HIV-infected patients, and they gave them sham adjustments. They thought they were getting adjusted, but they weren't really getting real adjustments. Then they took the other group, and they gave them real adjustments. And they did that for a couple of weeks, and they looked at the results. What did they find? The people who got the sham adjustments, no change. The people who got the real chiropractic atlas adjustments, what happened? Their CD4 level came up. The primary component of their immune system went up. By how much? 48%. That's significant. So I was pretty pumped about that. I thought I went to school to just, crack people's backs and help their neck and back pain. Then I got a hold of that. So when I graduated a few years later, I took that paper down to an AIDS shelter down here in Fort Lauderdale called Think Life. Went and donated my time. And I said, I don't need to get paid, I just want to donate my time, and the only thing I do want is the blood reports of the patients. And I followed up with it, and guess what I saw? Same exact thing. A lot of people I was taking care of, they were able to get off their AZT and their AIDS medications, have their viral loads lessened. It's a real thing, guys. I'm serious about this. I'm dead serious about checking atlases. Listen, there's not a day that goes by that my back doesn't hurt. I'm not quitting chiropractic care because my back pain doesn't go away. I stay making sure my atlas got checked yesterday, right after many of you guys. It's the most important thing I can do for myself, for my family, or for you. You may not know it, but this is what it's all about. This is where it's at. Right here. If your atlas is balanced and the tone of your vagus nerve is perfect and in perfect control and harmonizing your autonomic nervous system, how does that affect your risk of cancer? Lowers it, right? So if that's the case, then if you do get a cold, a flu, or God forbid, cancer, what do you think the most important thing that you could possibly do would be to start with? Is get what? Get checked. At least get that cleared out. You don't want a sickness and an atlas subluxation. Then you're screwed. Then it doesn't matter what you do. Your body's never going to be able to comprehend itself. Right? What about on this side? Now you got an atlas subluxation. How does that affect your risk of cancer? It's happening, whether you're aware of it or not. So how long should that stay there before it gets corrected? A day, a week, a month. If your atlas is out, how long do you want it to stay like that? I heard that. I saw on YouTube. People go on average. When it hurts, a couple times a year, go to a chiropractor, right? But once a month. That's about average what people do. You can do whatever you want. I want to know when my atlas is in and when it's out, and I'm not going more than a week. Whatever you decide is up to you. Every 2 weeks. Listen, that's as long as you understand what's at risk, how important that is to you, that's your decision. But I want my nervous system working at peak potential as long as possible. And the other question is, how many people do you think are walking around out there with an atlas subluxation? They don't feel it, they don't know it. Yeah. And what is it doing to their health? Yeah. Think of all the health problems that people have. And this is literally like the reset switch. Just like that. You never know how far reaching an atlas adjustment will do. It changed my life. When I did that to my father, I had migraine headaches every single year. That's what was causing it. And he was on 6 different medications, beating the living tar out of my brother and I, screaming at my mother. Complete dysfunction in my house. And as soon as that atlas was adjusted, that was the beginning of all of that change. He changed physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Chiropractic gave him his life back. Gave my mom her husband back. Gave me my father back. The man I hated, I begged my mom to leave him. Gave me a best friend. If you're here tomorrow at 10 o'clock, you'll meet my dad. He still gets adjusted. He's been getting adjusted for the last 40 years. Doesn't come up because he has back pain. He wants to stay as healthy as possible, as long as possible. And you guys get that. Not everybody gets that, but you guys get that. The adjustment is for wellness, to help you be the best version of you, right? It's amazing how people will spend more on their car or their truck than they will on their health. Somebody was in here yesterday. He brought his dad in, and I checked his dad out. He could hardly walk. And the back was probably the top 3 worst spines I've ever seen. And they just came back from a show. They were on vacation this weekend, and he had to roll him around in a wheelchair. Yeah, just because his back won't hold up. And then he was telling me about his dad's truck that he took in, and it needed, I don't know, he almost had a heart attack when he saw the bill for this truck. And he's like, but then he thought about it. He said, that's 6 years worth of deferred maintenance. He said, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Did his dad take care of his back? Can you believe that? I was thinking about that. Not the nicest people in the world. But it just reminded me how some people will take better care of their cars than they will of their health. They'll drop a few $1,000s in their car before they'll do that to prevent hundreds of thousands of dollars in the treatment of cancer and disease. Nobody here is like that.
So every time you adjust us, you adjust the atlas.
You better believe it. That's right.
It's right, it's straight.
Yes. Don't let you get up off that table unless it's perfect.
Once a week.
You got it. Now you got it. You just got it. So, University of Rochester School of Medicine, they said nerve fibers go into every organ in the immune system. We found that if you took the nerves away from the spleen or the lymph nodes, you virtually stop the immune response in its tracks. So, all of these things we talked about tonight, you have to have proper nerve supply. An atlas subluxation is a form of vertebral subluxation. Vertebral subluxation is also below the atlas. So any part of the spine, below that can also be out of alignment. But it's not just a misalignment. A subluxation is not just a misalignment of the vertebrae, right? It has to be choking off vital nerve supply, causing sickness and disease. It has to be choking off life through that nerve. And if it is, then that's a subluxation. Subluxations choke off life. So we know that, and the weight of a dime can reduce the nerve supply through there by 60% in just 3 minutes. So it's vital that people are checked for subluxation, because you don't know it. If you don't feel it, you don't know it. So what causes subluxation? Everything. Trauma, thoughts, toxins. What comes under that heading? Trauma, like the birth process, slips, falls, trips, sports injuries, car accidents. And then we have looking down, texting and computers and all those things, toxins we talk about. So we just live in a world where we have to maintain our spine. And then last but not least, I just want to close with this story. Dr. Ronald Piro did a study on cancer patients, studied the immune systems of cancer patients, non-cancer patients, and non-cancer patients under chiropractic care 5 years or more. And I've kind of done my own study on this over the years as well. And what they published in that study, they said that chiropractic patients had immune systems on average that were 300% stronger. So typically what my patients will see is as the years go on, you get sick less often, you don't get as many colds, flus, you don't go to the doctors as much. 10 years goes by, you look at all the people that you know, love, and care about, and they got all these other health problems, and you're like, right? And you're telling everybody, some of them listen, some of them don't, but that's what happens. But just like I took care of my mother, my mom was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, and I took care of her for another 6 years. And what I'm talking about with chiropractic is not that it's a cure, but it does help to give you the edge. And this right here is Michael Matlock. Michael was the grandson of a patient of mine, Peter Matlock. Peter and Miriam used to come in back in the 1990s when I first opened up practice. And he was a patient for many years. Probably started in 1996. I think in 2002, he came to me one day and said, I've been diagnosed with metastatic cancer from my spine, it's gone into my lungs. Pain in his back wasn't going away. So they found that he had lung cancer. He's like, what would you do? Same age as my dad. I said, Peter, you're the same age as my dad. If it was my dad, I'd be adjusting you every day. At least 3 times a week, just keep coming in. And he did. But he went for the chemo. He went for the chemo. So I'm like, whatever you want to do, I don't care, you still just need to be adjusted, you know? So I gave him the information, but he made his own decision. So I took care of him, did the chemo, fluid built up in his lungs, made him real weak. He got through it. A couple of years later, he was clean for a year, and then all of a sudden, what happened? Cancer came back. Same thing. Had the chemo, fluid filled up his lungs, he had all of the collateral damage that my mom had from that, and he went for his 3rd bout. Now this was 7 years after his initial diagnosis. And I remember having the conversation with him and asking him, what does your oncologist want to do at this point? You keep doing the same thing and you keep getting the same results. What does he expect to change? He's like, honestly, he said he's never had a patient, a terminal patient, stage 4, where I was when he diagnosed me, live this long. He doesn't know what to do. I'm just a lab rat to him. So he said to me, I know it's because of the adjustments. There's nothing else that I've been doing. His grandson was ready to be bar mitzvah. He was probably a year out. And he's like, the only thing I care about at this point in my life, he's like, I have no quality of life left. I just want to see him do bar mitzvah. And we got closer and closer to that time. He couldn't make it into the office anymore. He was confined to his house. He used to go over there to Jacaranda and adjust him in his house. His oxygen hooked up to him. And I just kept telling him, we're going to get you there. You're going to do it. You're going to do it. You're almost there. And that was the picture that was taken the day his grandson was bar mitzvah. I was there, and Peter was there. And he passed away 2 weeks later. And, it's a bittersweet story. the reason why I tell you that is because, you know, this isn't a job for me. You know, I gotta be honest with you, I feel like crap today. You know, I don't feel good at all. But I wouldn't dare withhold the truth for information that I know will help and improve the quality of your life. And it's not just for you, but I know it's for the generations to come. It's not just what you know, it's for who you're going to share this with. And you never know who you're going to share something with, somebody who's ready to receive it. And because of that, they're going to make a good decision and their life is going to be changed. And just because of each of us willing to share, the world becomes a better place. Out of unselfish abundance. Because what we have, we only have because God has enabled us to have that. Right? Whatever gifts that we have, whatever love that we have in us, it's because God loved us first. You know? And that's why I'm here, and that's why I share these things, so I can remember and I can remind myself. You know, after doing this for 32 years, this is not work for me. This is my life purpose. This is how I serve God, by serving you, by serving as many people as I can take care of physically. You know, this is what I taught you tonight. I put a lot of thought into this because I want you to know how to use the tool that I have given you. This thing called chiropractic, not enough people know about it, they don't have it, and they don't enjoy it, and they don't have the benefit of it. You do. But I want you to get the most out of it. And hopefully tonight I've made a good case for that, how to use the adjustment, right? Not just for your neck or your back, or even your posture. Sometimes your posture may look worse, sometimes your back may hurt worse. But now you know the power of a chiropractic adjustment. Unmatched, unrivaled. There's nothing. There's not a supplement. There's not a diet. There's not exercise. There's nothing else that has preeminence over and above proper nerve supply. You guys, you know that, right? And so hopefully I've put everything together in a nice little package for you tonight as far as understanding, preventing cancer, and how to make sure that you can get the most out of this. And of course, I'm always here to help you do whatever else that you need as far as questions and other testing or whatever it is. But so where we go from here, basically, whatever you need. If you need the supplements, ask them up front. The body composition analysis, we talked about that, or the toxicity testing. Whatever you need, you just let us know, and they'll take care of that before you leave. Thank you for hanging in there with me tonight. Love and appreciate you guys. God bless.
Thank you.